I think the biggest one, it was price, right? Because I came into fitness broke.
Mhm.
So when I started, like I said, I was charging credit cards to get my personal training certificate, right?
Yeah.
When you come from that mindset, you're like, oh, I need to help people. And you think by lowering the price or giving them more and lowering the price is going to help them, but it will not help them. So you can only find this out after you do it, guys. But you'll find as you elevate the price, you get a higher quality customer that is less work and gets better results. The money is your biggest driver when it comes to this, but the belief that you're doing them a favor by lowering the price, it's not true.
Mhm.
So how do people shop? They're going to go find the most expensive thing, and then they maybe try to find a knockoff that's the same ingredients but less. That's how people shop. They shop off value. So if you're getting a lot of price objections, just to be frank, your isn't worth it, right?
Mhm.
You either don't have the conviction to sell it or it's not. So you have to crank that value up so you can get the price that you want out of it. And then you can actually grow a business from there rather than a job. You have to get over the money thing. If you do not get over the money thing, you will never thrive in business. If you're a coach that's selling stuff for 100, $200 a month, I promise you there's people selling a worse version of that for 800, 1200 a month. I
Yeah.
promise you that.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. So excited to share today's guest with you. His name is Cody Watkins, and he just has an awesome origin story, and you can really tell how he developed himself into a true entrepreneur, basically coming down from nowhere and making it happen. So I think he's going to just really inspire you to drop a lot of tips on you that's going to help you motivate in the business world. So I'm really excited to share him with you. As always, please leave a rating and review on iTunes so I can continuously get awesome guests like Cody and really shares this wonderful information. So I'm very excited about that. As always, jump on the website if you know anybody who's interested in starting a podcast. I'm really ramping up this course and trying to get it out to as many people as I can so that they can have the opportunity to be in the top 1% of podcasts in the world. So let's get it. Let's jump into the show. Cody, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing good, man. How was yourself?
Excellent, excellent. Really excited to jump on this call with you and get like some advice, man. Like you're doing really well out in this space, and I know you have a great origin story as well. So I want to give you an opportunity to tell that first,
Yeah.
and then we're just gonna get into some questions so we can help these health coaches out here get online, get better business opportunities, and really just any tips that you would have. So
Yeah.
really looking forward to touching base
Yeah.
around that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I started out pretty young. I think typical for most males, kind of skinny fat with some man boobs. You don't really feel comfortable. You're too small in clothes where people don't think you're fat, but you take your shirt off and you got a little bit more jiggle than you'd like, right? So
Yeah.
I started out there. Obviously it's crazy diets at first because you want instant results. So 3 days of tuna fish diet, 3 days of this diet, crazy stuff, right? But anyways, finally figured out, realized nutrition wasn't the main mover. When I got that in, cool, got into strength training in high school. So, big on the bench squats, deadlifts, which kind of translated me to powerlifting later. So I competed in powerlifting. Then I got into personal training. And when I did my first powerlifting meet, I realized it was a little out of place, right? Because most powerlifters are a little bit higher body fat, a little bit bigger individuals. I might have been strong, but my body wasn't fitting the mold when it came to that. So then I had some bodybuilding friends. I kind of transitioned into that, competed for roughly 10, 12 years while being a personal trainer, online coach, all that. And then towards it, obviously there's struggles along the way. I ripped my pec off the tendon, had that reattached, competed a bodybuilding show like 10 months later. And then in 2018, I was sideswiped a little bit. I was cutting down for a show. I was about 6 weeks out from a bodybuilding show, and I was feeling a little off the next day, right? And I'm like, my resting heart rate was like 130. I'm trying to figure it out. So I ended up heading up to well, first it was supposed to be urgent care, but then I thought I was going to die. So I pulled into the ER. Well,
Mm.
come to find out, I had a cognitive birth defect. So I had a bicuspid, almost unicuspid heart valve. And basically the whole time I'd been bodybuilding, I had been in heart failure. So my heart was about 3 times the size it should be.
Wow.
When I went in, I was stage 1 heart failure, but my blood pressure was over 250 at that point so hypertensive crisis, right? So They started poking, prodding me. Anyone that's been to the ER for anything, right? They test you. They're like, oh, it's anxiety, right? Well, I was not getting anxiety. I was obviously dying. So they did an echocardiogram, so a ultrasound of the heart, found out I had heart failure. My valve had tore. So they're like, hey, if this would have happened while you were training, you'd be dead. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. So I went
Right.
from being 6 weeks out from a bodybuilding show that I was like 250, 7% body fat on a DEXA. I was like, yeah, easiest prep ever, to 6 weeks out from heart surgery, open heart surgery, to repair my valve and hope things were going to be normal after. So by the time they cut me open, I was 10 to 15% ejection fraction. For anyone in the audience that doesn't know, that's stage 4 heart failure. So normal is 55 to 65%.
Yeah.
10 to 15 regurgitating. So half of my blood was going back in. I was functioning on 7.5 to 10% heart function by the time they cut me open. So
Wow.
it was pretty terrible.
Well, how did you not feel that when you were training, or it was just something that you were dismissing? That
You're bodybuilder, right? You're used to kind of feeling terrible. So when you get up on the upper part of weight, smaller bodybuilders, I'm sure they feel great, but I'm 5'10". When I lose that feet fat, I get down to like 5'9" and a half. And I was, 235, 240 pounds on stage, single digit body fat. So my off season, I'd be 275, closer to 280 when I got as big. And so that's large as a human. So yeah, you're breathing. Yeah, you're wheezing. I'd throw up like a workout a week, but I just chalked it up to training hard. Oh, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm just training hard, right?
Jeez.
And so you just kind of blur it in the mix and you don't think about it because, I was 30 years old at the time. When you're 30 years old, you don't think heart failure, right? That's just not
Right.
even, it's not even on the playbook. That doesn't happen to 30-year-olds. And then you go in and it's just like getting a sucker punch, man.
Yeah, man, that's scary. And that's like, it's funny you say ejection fraction. I had a test once, and apparently my ejection fraction is just like naturally it's the normal low.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like 50, 55.
Yep, 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 yep.
But once I got that, diagnosis,
Yeah.
I feel my heart like constantly. I'm like so fixated on it
Oh, you
now.
can't turn it off,
You
man.
can't
What's
turn
the
it off. So
point?
I can only imagine how you feel.
Well,
Like,
well, that too, but they replaced it. So I have an artificial heart valve in there, so it's audible.
hmm,
I sound like a stopwatch, right? I
really?
can hear it, I can feel it. The only time that I cannot hear or feel it is when I'm in the shower because it's noisy enough and there's enough like body stimulation, right? Like the water's hitting you that you can't pay attention to.
Yeah,
That's
wow.
the only time I have peace. I'm one of those like 25% that it drives bananas. Like I fall asleep on the couch every night and then stumble into bed because I cannot fall asleep in bed because I will hyper focus and listen to my
Oh,
heartbeat. So it's
I
very that part's very challenging when it comes to it.
Oh man, well you're a good man to be able to just deal with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Could
yeah,
yeah, like it could drive someone crazy, and obviously
yeah.
like, learn how to handle. But yeah,
So
no, that,
yeah, then after that show, right? Like you having getting yourself rug pulled, you kind of have to refine your identity in a sense, right? And you don't when you come out of a situation like that, you don't really know what you're going to be able to do. So I was picking their brain about limitations. I'm like, hey, what are the limitations of this heart valve? Because you like, can you still lift? Can you still push it? Who knows, right? You don't get a lot of guys that look like me that are getting heart surgery. When I was on the heart ward of the hospital, or whatever, it's 70, 80-year-old people, right? It's not
yeah,
guys in their 30s. And so the heart surgeon, he's like, oh, it's mechanical, so the pressure's not really gonna mess with it. He goes, and so basically, if you used to work, because everyone assumes you work out a really long time. So they're like, well, used to work out 2 hours a day. So you might only be able to work out 45 minutes to an hour. I'm like, cool, that's all I work out anyways. That'll work out perfect. So I kind of
yeah.
checked that box. And then, getting back into it, I ended up doing a bodybuilding show 11 and 12 months after the heart surgery just to see if I could.
Mm.
And I ended up, winning the first one of my class. I think won the second one of my class or got first and seconds, in that ballpark. And then I have 28 screws and 7 plates in my chest, kind of holding all this stuff together. So they
Wow.
figured I was a really big individual. So they didn't want me pulling apart just with the sternal wires.
Wow, that's a great story, man. And I'm glad that you're doing well and thriving and doing all that good stuff. So yeah, that's why I was really excited for that to share with the audience. And yeah, I guess the next logical question is like, how did you stumble onto I'm gonna do this as a business? Like, this
It-
is something that obviously you have a great story to
yeah.
parlay into it. But what was the ideas behind that?
So when it came down to the business, right, I started out with manual labor, right? I think a lot of people, when you don't know what you're doing, you just, so I was painting houses, moving doors, all that stuff. My uncles owned like a painting construction business, so I worked for them. Then I had a friend that was, a manager at GNC, and they're like, "Oh, come work for us," right? So then I got into the supplement industry, right, in GNC, still doing like the painting stuff, so kind of juggling both. But the GNC I was working at was next to three of the largest corporate gyms.
Okay.
So I was training for powerlifting at the time, knowledgeable about supplements, knowledgeable about nutrition, training, all that. And the trainers would come in there, and I had always put personal trainers up on a pedestal. I'm like, man, they must be so smart making all this money. And I'd get in there and I was talking to them, and like, they're not that smart.
Right.
They're asking me questions and they don't know the answer to it. And so I was prepping for a powerlifting show or a powerlifting meet, and I was working out 24. And one of the managers came up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, my top trainers are making, $4,000 a month." I'm like, "Wow, 4,000 a month. That's so much money. I can't believe it." He goes, "Man, you get certified, I'll hire you in." So I'm like charging it on credit card, right? I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I get certified, get in there. And we had 20, 25 trainers in that place. And I was top trainer in the region within 3 months of working for them,
Mm.
because most of them did not know what they're doing. And so when I got into that, there was no online coaching back then, right? It would have been email tag at best. That
Yeah.
transitioned in later when social media started getting big. So I did hybrid for a while and then eventually switched into all online. It gives you so much more potential for outreach. Personal training, you're counting reps, you're stuck with the same group of people. You just can't help as many people when you're locked in that box.
Hmm. So then you just transitioned that to your online, like what was it as far as the thought process was? Because you could only be at one place at one time. What did you do as far as like that first step to transition to the online world that you can help actually more people?
You just got to cut it, right? So I was doing
Mm.
online, in-person, hybrid. And by in-person hybrid, I was 200 to 240 hours a week of personal training.
Mm.
And then or not a week, sorry, a month. So I'd work 50, 60-hour weeks in person training people, and then online training on top of that. So very, very high amount of, I don't do anything but this, right? But eventually you start getting tapped, and you're in-person people, you get in shape, but they got such a relationship with you, man, you can't shake them. So then you
Yeah.
can't help other people. So it kind of gets you in this pickle. Well, like we were talking about before we hopped on here, but I originally moved from Washington State. That's when I cut the tie to any in-person. I'm like, my online people are getting actually better results than in person. So
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense for the in-person to consume more of my time. So
Right.
now I'm going to switch to an all online model because I know this works better and I can help so many more people. And it's a bit of a leap of faith, right? Because it's a comfort zone for a lot of people, and you just got to do it, right? If you have the potential, you're good at what you do, you can communicate, you can sell, you can monetize this thing. You might as well do it, because your amount of outreach and people you can help through that and thereby make more money is
Hmm.
so much greater.
So did you naturally have a business acumen? So like, how did you kind of figure out what to do initially?
So I think my biggest driver is I don't play well with others. So there was really no other option for me but to be my own boss, right?
Yeah.
When I was at 24, it was great because they didn't really tell me what to do because I was doing better than everyone else in there. So that's why it worked well, but I still didn't like how much of my money that they were taking every month, right?
Oh yeah.
So I'm over there selling like, 15 grand a month of training, and I'm getting a chunk of it, right? But not near the chunk I thought I should be getting.
Sure.
Now they had the business model, so there was a lot to learn, but I had some very, very good clients over the years, right? So one of my clients, and a great guy, Al Santos, right? And he had worked with two or three other trainers. That This guy's great, man. I've known him for years, but when he came to me, I was one of the first trainers that got him results. And he was in sales, and Al loved sales. And obviously, to be good at training, you have to be good at sales.
Yeah.
So we would do our training session, and he was the last client I had of the day. And we would sit there, and he would go through sales coaching with me for
Oh
an
wow.
hour or 2 hours. At the end, we're sitting at 24, and he's running through mock scenarios, mock scripts, all this stuff. So then I start implementing the stuff he does, and all of a sudden I had sell like 8 grand more training the next month. I'm like, oh, this stuff works. And so once you see something works, you get hungry for it. You're like, can I do this better?
Mhm.
And then it was just going like that, right? And then I opened my own studio, did some independent stuff, and now I run my own business, but all from an online perspective.
Okay. So what does your business model look like at this point?
As far as
just like, you know, what is your like revenue stream? Are you doing like, you know, still the training? Is it group coaching? Is it
Yeah.
teaching like courses? Like I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah. So I do one-on-one. I'm not a fan of group or course type mindset because there's a very low level accountability. And
Hmm.
so group is great from like a contest perspective. Like if I want to incentivize people, maybe throw a cash reward, free training reward, I'll put them in a group, do something like that. But
Hmm.
I'll never do it as a main business model because I'm kind of obsessed with results.
Okay.
So I just don't feel group or courses do that. They may give some people the tools, but you're hitting maybe 10 to 20% of the population with those tools. And I want to hit a much higher percent. So I have roughly a 90% success rate with clients because of how we do this. And we can hyper crank that accountability. And when you're talking, nutrition, training, and all that, you can do a general model and hit the mold. But if you can get down to specifics, you can charge more, get a higher caliber of client, and now you can get more money and better results. So it's the best combination of in my opinion, of them all.
Yeah. Okay. So it's definitely a more of a just one-on-one coaching. Okay, I
Yeah.
got you. Yeah, no, that's and so what would you think is like the biggest driver of how you actually get your clients?
So there's a few ways you can do it. And from a lot of perspective, you'll see people very successful on social media,
Hmm.
but it doesn't mean they're actually monetizing that, right?
Right.
So you could have all the eyeballs in the world, but if you can't sell, you're not going to make anything.
Hmm.
So sales has to come first. You have to know how to sell because even if you have less leads coming in, you can at least close them. You can at least make money off it. Versus if you have
Right.
all the eyeballs in the world and you have no sales skills, you're not going to make any money. So make sure you know what to sell. The other one that is often neglected is people do not price it right. And so what I mean by this is we look at a price like, okay, you charge 300 a month. So I'm like, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to charge 250 a month. All you do is you lose your margins. And so if you don't make enough money off a client, you have to get more clients, which drops your level of service, and you don't have the money to really give that solid fulfillment and accountability and crank the information that you can give them because you can't pour the time into it because you're so busy trying to hunt down more clients to fill that number versus
Right.
if you just crank the price tag, you would blow their socks off in results, give them higher level accountability and be able to do it like that. So price is a lever that's often neglected in the business community of fitness.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. One of my mentors always used to call it like the Walmartification of like these things. Like,
Yep.
you know, you're so much a driver to the bottom
Yep. Yeah,
versus
it's the
burning you
quickest way
out.
to get to last place. And not saying that there's not a time and a place, right? You're going to have to eat crow for a little bit in business. There's no way
Mm-hmm.
around it.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone's, listening to this and they're a newer, coach or trainer getting into things, don't expect to get in there charging 2, 3, 4, 5 grand for your packages. If you can, hey, more power to you. You're going to be able to kill it if you can sell, but your fulfillment will be garbage. And if your fulfillment's garbage, you're never going to get referrals. You're never going to get recurring customers, and you're always going to be chasing down new revenue, which is the hardest thing to do when it comes to business. So not to get too deep in the weeds, but you have to look at your cost per acquisition. Like how much does it cost you to actually attain a client? And
Mm-hmm.
so if your said client say costs $500, you want to make at a minimum 3 to 5x on that. So
Mm-hmm.
1,500 to 2,500 off that client. So if you're charging 200 bucks a month, you can't do that. So you have a losing model and you can pull it off in the interim if you're the main guy. You got no employees, you're doing all this stuff, but then it's not scalable. And what I mean is you can pull off by yourself. It doesn't cost you money for your time. But
Right.
what you have to do instead of doing 8 or 10 hours a day of work, you're doing 15, 16 hours a day of work just to keep your doors open and online doors open too, right? It doesn't have to be in person. But the minute you go, man, I'm getting strapped on time, I'm full on clients, I need to get more. And how do I do this? You have no money left on the table to hire anyone on your team to help you. And if there is any money, it's so insignificant, you couldn't even hire good help if you tried.
Right. Right. So you have you right now you do have a team behind
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Smaller team, right? I like to maximize it, but we're a 5 man crew, right? Nothing super crazy.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So what are you doing as far as marketing right now? Because you just mentioned like a number as far as like, you know, to acquire a client. I'm always interested in like, what is the marketing strategy that you find to be the most successful?
Well, for us, we do. our monetization is organic right now. Now I'm still trying to crack the ads and get into that stuff, but it's not my forte. So organic, we do very well with. I have a pretty decent following on social media. There's a lot of cold outreach when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to it, guys, clients aren't going to come to you,
Right.
right? They're going to sit there and lurk in your profile, watch your stories, maybe comment, maybe like a post. And if you just sit back and go, all right, I posted, that money's going to come in. You will be broke and you will go out of business. So anyone that's making money, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. We're talking 100, 150, 200 messages out a day. There is a lot of work that goes in on the backside that you never see on that successful front side. So if you think you message, 5 or 6 people that day, you're never going to make any money. So whatever you think you're doing, that's a lot. You probably need to crank that dial and just do more of it to make that money. And you can do it through email. You can do it through, giving out the free courses, contests, stuff like that. There's a lot of ways you can monetize it. Personally, with us, we put out a lot of content that gets some eyeballs, and we just reach out with people, and not in a sleazy manner either. Not like, hey man, feeling fat? You want to come sign coaching? Right? That's weird. You have a conversation. There's a scriptish to it, right? You have to be able to communicate with people,
Mm.
and if you do that, the main takeaway, guys, is people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So if you come at them and you're trying to talk in all these big words and really bamboozle them with bullshit when it comes to the fitness side of things,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't even think you care to begin with, they're gonna be like, dude, sleazy car salesman, block.
Mm-hmm.
So, like with my team, we'll use an acronym GAS. So give a shit. Like if I see a conversation that is just trying to, get someone on a call and sell them, done. Like that's not acceptable. The
Mm-hmm.
whole point is to be solving for a solution. Like we want to find out why this is important to the person, what they're trying to achieve, and then you can see what you can actually offer for help. If I can't help someone, it's like kudos, man, good for you. You're losing a couple pounds a week, killing your fitness. I'm not even going to try to talk to you about working with me, right? Now, if you hit a stick, absolutely, man, I'll try to get you on call. But not everyone's a fit. You have to give a shit about what they're actually wanting to get out of a fitness program or what you're shooting for. And then if you are able to provide a solution, cool, show them what you can do. And if your service is great, you should have no issue selling it to people.
Right, right. Yeah, no, exactly. It's funny. I'm a big audiobook guy,
Yeah,
and I'm listening to you with a lot of you're very Alex Hermosi-ish.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm assuming you're a fan.
Oh yeah, yeah. I like Ramosi. He's technical too, right? And he takes the emotion out. And I do believe that's one of the things that makes people very successful at this, because if you start making emotional decisions, they're usually not good. Like those who make decisions with an emotional mind will find themselves regretting it later.
Hmm.
So like think if your spouse comes in, right? She or he, whoever you are, like they set you off and you snap. That's not a reaction you would normally have. And you're like,
Right.
God, I was kind of an ass about that one. Maybe I should have thought about it. So think in business too, you don't want to be like, ooh, the leads aren't coming in. Maybe they are, right? Maybe they were just slow on Monday. Maybe you just need to look at the data a little bit more. Let the data make the decisions,
Hmm.
right? The emotions usually are not going to steer you the right way. Yeah, you're going to have gut feelings that'll help you out along the way, but look at your numbers, right?
Hmm.
If you're not, and kind of take back on this, if you're newer in business, you're probably not watching enough metrics.
Yeah.
So if I ask you, like, if you're like, man, Cody, I'm not making any money. Okay, well, how many messages you send out a day? A lot. Okay, cool. What's a lot?
Right.
Okay, but I'm so busy working on my business. Cool. What are you busy working on? And so, one of the biggest things that helped me off the beginning, and a lot of this stuff I've sponged up from other people over the years, but I would take a list of 24 lines on a piece of paper because I was so busy, didn't have time to do anything. And I would itemize my day out. I still do it to this day. But what am I going to do every single hour that is going to benefit my business? And be specific with it, right? And you run through it like a checklist. And so when you're like, I'm messaging people all day, when you start having to write down what you did every hour for the day, you realize how much you don't do. And
Hmm.
so, like noon to one, you're like, message people. Okay, who did you message?
Right.
Well, I messaged Gina, Tom, and Sid. Okay, so you sent 3 messages an hour. It took you 20 minutes a message. Well, and now you're like, okay, there's room for improvement there. That's somewhere where I can improve, right? So you can't. Problems can't live in the light, right? Everything's bigger when we're thinking it's a problem hiding in the shadows. Like you're walking through the woods, it's dark, you hear a noise, you're thinking it's, a werewolf, a monster, whatever. You
Yeah.
shine the light on, it's a little chipmunk, right? So you have to shine the light on things. So if you think something is bigger, put it in the light, put it on paper, see if it's actually as big of a problem as you're making it up, or if you're emotionally elevating it. And if you just look at it for what it is, it's not going to be as scary or as daunting.
Hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then again, I remember Hermosi does say
Yeah.
that. I remember with the I don't know if you did read his books at all,
Oh
but
yeah, I got his books. He's good. I like him.
yeah, but he does talk about that specifically with the flyers. I don't know if you
Yep.
remember that story.
Yes.
He said, yeah, I thought that was like one of the most impactful things
Yep.
to cranking it up. I mean,
Well, yeah, because people they always do a little bit of it. So if you're like, I message people and they're like, I sent 4 messages today. Great. What if you sent 400?
right, right.
Well, that's too much. And hey, if it is too much, that's where you got to start looking about hiring help. Where do you need help to fill the voids that's going to bring more money back into your business, right? And that's where it's about, knowing cost per acquisition, knowing where your leads are coming from, knowing your numbers. So
Hmm.
this is it's tedious at first, guys, but you got to build out some systems where you can track numbers. And it's archaic in the beginning. You might be on like Google Sheets or Excel, right? And it's real sloppy looking. You can
Yeah,
eventually get on Fiverr, on Upwork, or anything like that. Hire a guy to systemize your data. Like I went in through. I'm not good at the techie side of things, but I had a guy and he's great, right? And I'm like, hey man, here's all my sheets. Can you put this together for me?
right.
And he's like, oh, absolutely. So then he built a whole business infrastructure for me because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know what's coming in. So like you can sell coaching packages, right? Some people go on payments, some people go, paid in fulls and all that. But if you don't know where your money's coming in, it's really hard to anticipate the next months. So you don't want to just cross your fingers and hope for the best. So he built a whole interface out for me where it'll break down the prices over the month so I can see how much I have coming in February, March, April, May, based on the reoccurring payments I have in, then they'll drop off. So I can see like, okay, there's X amount of money coming in here, here, provided I get no sales. So then I know, okay, to hit my numbers, how many new clients do I have to get in to hit the revenue I need to?
Right, right. Yeah, no, listen, one of the things that I've found most fascinating about the business journey is that we tend to not do that. Just not
Yep.
look, kind of stick our head in the sand on the stats and the stuff like that. And it's funny because I have a podcast course that's out, and one of the things that I kind of tell people in the opposite for this
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
is don't look at the statistics in the beginning because it's going
Yeah.
to deter you. Like, so
Yeah.
don't listen, oh, I only have 3 people download
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
episode in the beginning. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I
So
would
it's
say, I would
different.
say it might even be worth looking at from a different coin though. So I mean, you'll be more specifics, but I know Hermosi pointed out and like, what's the average? The average podcast lasts what, 5 episodes before they quit?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're technically the top 10% if you just make it to episode 6. Now you might only be getting like 5 downloads, but you're still in the people that survive that initial bit. So I think a lot of it is looking at all the data, right? Because we tend to look at that negative piece. You're like, God, this is I have so far to go. Yeah, but if you just break it down bite by bite, step by step by step, you're going to be further than you ever thought before you know it.
No, that's a great point. So I just actually, a buddy of mine sent that. Do you know what the number is to get to the 1%?
I don't know. This is your world, right? So what is it?
20,
20 podcasts?
20.
And it's like if you break that down, that's like one every 2 to 3 weeks,
It's
right?
insane.
It's not super crazy.
Yeah, so it's like
Now
right.
the difference from that top 10% to top 1%, that's enormous in comparison, but like top 10% is still pretty cool.
Yeah, and then I mean, you could like right now. I mean, in this health coach
Yeah.
academy, I'm at 200, right?
Yeah.
So I could, even if nobody was listening, I could say I'm top 1% of podcast. It's
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
so the
Just
statistic
fix
is
an
actually,
episode and you're good. But it's true. I mean,
it's,
it's still true. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting world. But
Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to be, before I forget,
Yeah.
I jumped on your website, and I
Yeah.
think the most profound thing, and I think we all forget this, is the before and after pictures, right?
Yeah.
Like that's such a important thing. Tell us why the before and after pictures. the strategy of social proof,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and why it's so important for you in your business and for us to get business as well.
So when you're looking at it, you always have to put yourself in the client's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever, I've hired for help over the years, I've always looked to see that they can do it first. And clients are going to be no different. So, if you don't have maybe the most fit appearance, okay, you've already lost testimonial number one with them. So you better have an immense amount of credit on the backside for them to believe what you're saying. And so if you have the social proof, like for me, if I work with a lady, they're not gonna look at me and go, oh yeah, he'll get me in shape. They'll be like, ooh, he might make me bulky, right?
Right,
And
right,
so if I have a bunch of testimonials of ladies I work with, they're gonna find one of those that they resonate with.
right.
So like, wow, the before looks just like me. I can do that too. And video testimonials work out great because they can relate on a personal story. Like, oh, I'm a busy mom with 5 kids. I have no, and they're like, oh my God, I didn't think I could even get in shape with my 5 kids. And so you can never have too many testimonials. It is just a matter of knowing when to use them. So, like, if you were coming to me for coaching and I'm like, man, and I'm sending you all these like lady before and afters, you'd be like, dude, he's gonna have me doing booty kickbacks and hip thrusts for an hour. Like, I don't want to do this. It has to fit the mold. So I'm like, okay, he's a guy. He's probably gonna want big Arnie chest, arms, be lean. Okay, I'm gonna send you some before and afters where maybe that before looks closer to where you're at, and the after is where I think you want to go. And then you can relate to it more. And if you can see yourself in that story, it's a lot easier because now you have rapport and trust built with them, and you don't even know it.
So let me ask you, I'm glad that you brought that up because you obviously didn't niche down to
Mhm.
a dude in his 20s who goes to Star, but like how they say,
Yeah,
just keep on, keep on.
yeah.
Why didn't you do that? And why did it work when you're
So with this, I don't know. It might be a little bit of my ego. Like I just want to get everyone in shape, right? And I have worked with so many different groups that I don't know. I don't necessarily like to pocket myself into one. We'll do more targeting niche marketing in select pockets. But the thing is, where I think the whole industry gets way too complicated, it's all the same thing, man. So
yeah.
like if you're a busy professional, if you're a doctor, if you're working night shift, the same rules apply. Yes, we have different circumstances, circadian rhythm, cortisol, hormones, all that stuff factors in, absolutely. But the nuts and bolts of it is the same. So the people doing this, like, oh, I'm going to be a menopause specialist. I'm going to be a vegan specialist. I'm going to be a keto specialist. It's good for salesy, but I think a lot of the people that do this, they lack the fulfillment portion of it. So they can sell on the front, but I don't know how many return customers are going to get on the backside because the same rules apply across the board. Now, casting a wide net does not always work. So you do have to make sure you deliver. But this is where like having the specifics of the testimonials can come in hand because again, if I know this person can relate to this, I'm going to put the right information out in front of them. So they go, oh my God, he can work with me. That's what I want to do. And so when you're starting out, if you try to niche down before you know what you're good at, I do think that is going to shoot you in the foot. If you're like, man, this person's killing it with, nurses or killing it with menopause or killing it with keto. Yeah, but there's a lot of people out there in all those spaces. So why don't you find what you're good at, what you're actually passionate about, and then steer your stuff that direction and go from there.
And what's interesting, the way that you described it just now too is you in your business, you still can target the busy nurse, the busy mom, the busy doctor, whatever, specifically as well, because you do have, okay, I have a testimonial for that. I have a
Yep.
testimonial. Like, so you kind of, like you said, it's all the same stuff. You're not
Yep.
telling anybody something, and again, because you're personalizing everything,
Yep.
it works for everybody.
Yep.
It's not a cookie cutter kind of
Well,
stuff.
and it depends too on where you're coming in. So think if you're going like from an organic nature, you don't always control the eyeballs that are coming in.
Mhm.
And so, yes, if you get specific, you can make more money. There's no doubt about that. But like if you're targeting, let's say, women, but your social media feed is bringing in men, you either have to change who your feed's bringing in, which is a whole flip in content, all that. So you have to rework your structure, or you have to figure out how to speak to both, right? And again, when you need niche down, you can make more money, right? But I've done pretty well with this, so I'm not one to change my mold. And from my perspective, man, it's like I just feel like I can help everyone. So like I want to have that out there to some degree, but it's like, well, we have probably 30% of our clients right now are nurse, doctors, et cetera. So we have that medical niche, right? And then we'll have some, construction type workers, busy 12-hour days, like out on the oil field, stuff like that. So it's kind of across the board what we can do, but I wouldn't want to exclude any of them because I like getting people cheap, man. It's fun to me.
No, yeah, and I think that's a lot of the people who go into what we do. That's
Yeah.
what we want to help everybody, and it's
Yep.
almost like I think that's always been my hesitancy for the niching down
Yeah.
was because I don't want to just speak to the same person over and over and over again.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't want to commit to that too.
Yep.
So that's been a problem, but like a problem, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting too, though, is if you do have some more of a niche, it works better online than
Yep.
it works in, like, say, local. Like, so
Yeah.
if you're a local guy, it's and that's your market. It's
Yep.
easier to be very broad. But
Yep.
someone puts in I weight
Yeah.
loss,
Yeah.
and then something comes up. So it's
Yep.
like it's different online as opposed to.
Well, yeah, and there's reasons for that too. So it's that know, like, and trust factor.
Mhm,
So if you're in like a local gym doing in-person training, the commonality is the location.
mhm.
So think of it. If somebody walked up to you on the street and they're like, "Hey, can I borrow $20?" You're gonna be like, "Absolutely not, like weirdo, what a."
Yeah.
But if it was your neighbor, you might not even have had a conversation with him, but you're like, "Oh, we're in the same location. He'll hit me back." You might not do it, but you're gonna be a lot more inclined to do it at that point, right? So
Mhm.
the local kind of hits it from that dynamic. Now, when you're online, there's no trust. You don't have that initial rapport.
Right.
And so that's where you get an issue. So like, even though I do online, we live in a nice neighborhood out here in Texas, like, we're out on acres, but in a neighborhood-ish, right?
Mhm,
And I've already had three, four of my neighbors sign up with me.
mhm.
So like, even the guy who built my house, right? Because I talk to them about they come in my office and it's all fitness stuff on the walls and all this, like, you can't turn it off. So it's always there. But that's the commonality, right? Because you have something in common due to location. So you have to find a way to bridge that online. Like, what's that connection point that this person will automatically build trust and rapport with?
Right.
And so you can expedite this process by giving them free stuff. So
Mhm.
like Rosie will talk about this, Gary V, give or jab, 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 right hook. If you look at the ratio of commercials to advertisement, Facebook advertisement, TikTok advertisement to posts, it's roughly a 3 to 4 to 1, meaning you get 3 to 4 times the content for an ask. So then that's when they'll throw an ad out or something like that. So at the same time, if you haven't given your customer squat or your potential customer squat, why are they going to come to you? And it can be from a few dynamics. They could like your personality, think you're funny, you put good content out. I've had people sign up with me because they're like, "Dude, your reels are so funny," right? And then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
like
yeah.
great personality, and they're like, "Well, he's in shape. Look at all these testimonials." Likewise, you can come at it from an informative standpoint. So you're educating the people on there,
Mhm.
usually won't hook in as many eyes, but it is more targeted. But find your flavor, figure out what your speak is. Some people do better in like, split screens like a Twitter slide or text. Other people are very articulate. They can do video very well. Other
Mhm.
people, it's pictures, like maybe they're really in shape doing stuff in the gym, whatever you feel you're good at. And then you find a way to monetize that and speak and create that rapport barrier where you don't have to convince them you're good. They already feel like they know, like, and trust you. And it makes that transition to the conversation so much smoother.
No, absolutely. No, this has been great advice. Let me just wrap up with the question that I know a lot of people always have. What personally did you, maybe a limiting belief, something in the mindset world that you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
I think the biggest one, it was price, right? Because I came into fitness broke.
Mhm.
So when I started, like I said, I was charging credit cards to get my personal training certificate, right?
Yeah.
When you come from that mindset, you're like, "Oh, I need to help people," and you think by lowering the price or giving them more and lowering the price is going to help them, but it will not help them. So you can only find this out after you do it, guys. But you'll find as you elevate the price, you get a higher quality customer that is less work and gets better results. The money is your biggest driver when it comes to this, but the belief that you're doing them a favor by lowering the price, it's not true.
Mhm.
So how do people shop? They're going to go find the most expensive thing, and then they maybe try to find a knockoff that's the same ingredients, but less. That's how people shop. They shop off value. So if you're getting a lot of price objections, just to be frank, your shit isn't worth it, right? You either don't have the conviction to sell it or it's not. So you have to crank that value up so you can get the price that you want out of it. And then you can actually grow a business from there rather than a job. You have to get over the money thing. If you do not get over the money thing, you will never thrive in business. If you're a coach that's selling stuff for 100, $200 a month, I promise you there's people selling a worse version of that for 800, 1200 a month. I promise you that. And so when you finally realize this, don't just jump in, right? If that pool's cold, you don't want to put your toe in and then go ankle deep. And it's such a slow process. Just jump your ass in the water. Same thing with price. If you're charging $200 a month, don't go, oh, I'll go 225 this month. Okay, I'm going to charge 500 a month. And then you don't think like, oh my God, that's so much money. Flip the script. How can I give my clients 500 a month in value? That's what you want to. So what do you have to do extra for that client to get that $500? Because now every one client you get a month is worth 2.5 clients that you had before. So you can have significantly less volume of customers with significantly more revenue. And if you can crank that lever, and then it goes in on systems, right? How can you make this work a system, right? Where you're not manually doing everything, but the customer's still getting a quality result. But price, guys, price is the biggest thing. Don't think how I can make this cheaper. Think how I can make this more expensive, but provide a value that makes that price worth it.
Makes sense. Love that, and I think that's a lot of us are dealing with that just when we start. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Cody, you are the man. I appreciate the time you spent this morning with us. I'm looking forward to you being on this podcast, Birds Fast. So we're gonna get into the technical stuff tomorrow, and then So I want to give you an opportunity to just drop your stuff on us. Give us your website, social media handles. How can we keep up with all the great stuff you're doing?
Yeah, if you're looking to find me, I'm pretty easy to find. Get on social media, IG, Cody Watkins Fitness, Facebook, Cody Watkins Fitness. My personal Facebook is Cody Watkins Fit. So it's all blurred into that. I mean, you can type me in Google, I'll pull up on there as well. But the main point you're going to find me on is Instagram. So if you want to chat with me, you can shoot me a message on there. I'm highly active on that platform when it comes to it.
Awesome, man. Appreciate all the advice you've given us today. Have a great rest of the day.
Absolutely, man. It's been great.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.